And I'm going to turn first to Johan. Johan de Vos, who is Managing Director of Giga Joule, and I'm going to ask him to respond to questions. But the overall headline, is how true do you see, candidly, the vision of this roadmap against the reality that you fight every day, being on the ground and getting projects done? And to answer that question, thinking and helping us understand the financial risk-reward profile of infrastructure development for institutional investors. 2, what do you think African governments can do to better facilitate deal flow? 3, how can the DFIs and their development partners assist project developers going forward? And lastly, what are the precise deal terms that we need to implement and set forth to be able to make this partnership work? Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Just perhaps as background, we've taken a natural gas project to financial close in 2004, and today supply more than 40 industries and 2 power stations with natural gas in Mozambique. We've also taken 120 megawatt power station to financial close in 2014. And I think the first thing we need to understand, and I'm going to be brief on 3 issues. The time has changed. 2018 in Southern Africa is not 2014. I think there's a substantial change on how risk is being perceived, and that risk perception is based on the actual achievement of, let's call it, Southern African government, specifically Mozambican and South African government, and the role of the 2 utilities in that region. What came to me as a little bit of a surprise, we all rated this risk of political risk, project development risk, but the last one, the lowest risk we all perceived, is construction risk. That tells me there's a lot of developers out there that knows how to build the projects. There's funders that trust them, and that is our experience in the last couple of years. If you want to build a project on time and within budget, give it to a private developer. If you want it grossly overspent and manage it in an incompetent way, give it to utility. That's the reality of what's happening in Southern Africa right now. The second issue I want to just highlight, and let's say, who's willing to take that upfront risk? Most probably Barbara will get back to it repeatedly this morning and this afternoon. What we need in Southern Africa or in Africa is people that's willing to take that development risk. If when we started approaching pension funds and banks in 2003 and again in 2013, none of them was willing to take development risk. They said, take that project to financial close and we'll be there, we'll be running with you. We'll take equity, we'll provide loans, it's easy. But who takes that project from conception to financial close? In our case, it was the shareholders of Giga who had to do it. And the only companies that was willing to back us was O&M and EPC contractors. Now, is that the right guy you want right there in the beginning of the development of a project? Do you want the EPC contractors of Africa and the O&M developers to take that initial risk? I don't think so. You want them to be honest as far as possible and bid in the process. Secondly, why are they willing to take that risk? Because they don't actually take any risk. The EPC contractor takes his money right up front. He doesn't take the risk of the project over 20 or 30 years. The O&M is sitting right on top of that waterfall. First cash goes to operations, so he's looked after right in the beginning. And then Barbara, perhaps to be brief, the last point I want to stress out of the survey, and again, I think reading it the 3rd time, it actually dawned to me that what valuable piece of information we've achieved here, and what important basis this can form of how we assist the structuring of early development of projects. So whoever did all of this, especially to you and AI and Hubert and everyone, thank you very much. This is a very valuable document. And then the last point I want to make, we tend to structure government into one fundamental issue. And that's right at the end. We say, what do we need? Government understanding of the unique, challenging requirement for successful development. That comes at the highest issue. And all I want to plead is that we actually split government and utilities and manage them separately. And I mirror this. I think we've got strong support from all our governments in Africa for project developers to be successful, to assist us with that early funding. But my experience is that the local utilities has been frustrating project developers. I mean, in our case, for 3 years, we've been trying to register as an IPP under the SAP Powerful rules, and we've been frustrated and blocked by the local utilities. And I think if we wanted to be successful, at least in energy projects, we need to understand that government plays a very important role, but we need the utilities also to toe the line and assist project developers. Otherwise, we will not have energy in Africa. Barbara, that's my 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's the kind of granularity, that's what we need to really get a hold of to be able to operationalize it. So I thank you.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.